Hey, everybody, welcome. So, today we're going to talk about meditation and what it can do for your brain. And this might be like something that I make, this could be like a small little piece of a larger story that I tell on the podcast, on my vlog. And this one is something that's, man, I can't even express how impactful it's been for me just because of where it has taken me over the past, 3.5 years. So 3.5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, I started doing the Headspace app for meditation, and it's just been something that has just become a normal part of my life where I'd say once, maybe twice a day, I sit down and meditate for anywhere from 10 to 50 minutes. Usually it's shorter than longer. I would love to try on a daily basis to get those 50 minutes to an hour in. It's really hard to do just because of, how short the day is and how much stuff you have to do. And I really, over the past 3.5 years, it's been almost every single day I've been committed to, going way back to the beginning. I started that with the Headspace app, and I'm not going to go through my whole journey of meditation. I have a podcast on that on my Rob Z radio podcast platform, and you can find that and listen to it. I'm not quite sure where it is in the episodes, but what I'm going to talk about today is just something that I've noticed that I was talking to somebody about last week that made me realize, oh wow, meditation really does help. Okay, so I've had fear as an issue throughout most of my life. Fear has been a driving force for me, one of my biggest motivators and detractors. It used to be a huge detractor. Now I try to flip it, try to invert what fear is giving to me and use it as a motivation. Now, before I go into any deeper into that, like, fear really is just a signal. It's not something that is good or bad, okay? In our modern day society in a lot of aspects. Now, fear obviously is meant to save you from dying. Back in the day, you may have had a situation where you had to go hunt your own food and fear was important, or you had to protect your family. Fear was important, and protecting your family still was important. Protecting yourself still is important today, but it's not quite as the danger in our day-to-day lives, especially if you live in a first world country, is not quite as prevalent as it used to be. So our biology has not caught up with our reality. Hope that makes sense to you, just to start off with. But the big piece of this is that fear pops up in places where it's not necessary, right? If you're doing a big speech in front of a crowd, fear's not really necessary. It's there. Some people aren't afraid, but it's there as a sign that you're about to do something that you're not comfortable with, that you haven't done a lot of, and that you probably need to practice more of. So I look at fear now as something that is, and this is through meditation, this is also just through learning and reading and studying people who know more about this than I do. Fear is more of a signal that you're doing something that's foreign to you. Now, obviously, if you're going down a dark alley or you're involved in a drug deal or something, I don't know what the situation might be. Fear is a real thing that you need to pay attention to. But in a lot of our day-to-day life, the social anxiety aspects of fear and, fear of failure, that sort of stuff, it thinks it's helping us, but it could be holding us back. And if you can look at fear in a way that helps you to realize, oh, this is a signal that I'm doing something that's uncomfortable for me, something that's foreign to my psyche, okay? I'm just going to throw this out there and hopefully you can digest it. You have about 80,000 thoughts per day. All of us, we all have about 80,000 thoughts per day. About 99.9% of those thoughts are old thoughts. So our brain can really only pull from old thoughts, experiences, and memories, right? So obviously, if we haven't experienced something and we're doing something new, and our brain isn't used to that, doesn't have any experience with it, and maybe you could learn about it, but you haven't actually gone out and done it yourself, your body, your mind is going to identify that as fear. It's scary. You should be alarmed and you should be afraid of it because you're not used to it, right? So it's a defense or a safety precaution, right, for our minds, but it's not really practical when you're trying to move forward and change your life in a positive manner. Fear can get in the way and you can be confused by it. So what happens to me, and this was in meditation, right? So I would meditate at my house, in my backyard sometimes. I would meditate like in a bedroom alone by myself, okay? Get the idea? Like you're in your room meditating by yourself and sitting on the floor or laying on my bed or whatever. And I would have this fear that somebody was going to come up behind me, was going to come up from behind me and grab me, okay? And like start choking me or something. And that's crazy because there's no chance, or like this much of a chance, like how much of a chance is there that somebody would be in my room and come up and grab me from behind when, you know, my family's home, there's silence in the room, there's obviously there's nobody there. But my brain would make this thing up that somebody's going to come up from behind me and is going to grab me. And that was a real fear. And I used to see that all the time in my meditation. It would every single time I would meditate. And this is like the first 6 months to a year. And if I could be totally honest, it just happened again. I think it just happened again because I'm thinking of it. I think it just happened again because it dawned on me that this doesn't happen to me anymore. So I think what happened to me was like, I forgot about that thing. So I remembered it. And when I remembered it, it's like my brain was like, oh yeah, I used to be worried about that all the time. Let me worry about it again. So the brain brought it back up and I'm worrying about it again. So it just happened. It's funny. I planned on doing this 2 days ago, this episode. And just last night when I was meditating in my room, same place I usually do it, I had that fear pop up, which I haven't had that fear in a long time. And it was a real, like my body alarmed itself like it was a real fear. Now, luckily through the practice of meditation, I can recognize it, signify, oh, that is a fear emotion. Just let it go. The fear, the emotion that came from my heart is fear. And that emotion, and this is how I love, there's this guy, Michael Singer, or some people call him Mickey Singer. He's incredible. Buy the book, The Untethered Soul. And what he says in that is that, you know, when your emotion bubbles up from your heart, the emotion hits your brain and your brain turns that into a thought. Okay. So the fear bubbled up from my heart, hit my brain created the thought, and the thought was somebody's going to come up from behind me and grab me. Where did that fear emotion come from? Your body just throws them out willy-nilly. Your body's just always releasing emotions, and your brain is translating those emotions into thoughts, into text thoughts, you know, in your brain. And that happened to me last night, and I thought, wow, I haven't had this feeling in a long time. I forgot what this felt like. But I just let it go, okay, because I knew it wasn't real. Now, when I first started meditating, that thing would pop up, and it would be real to me. And I would like open my eyes and turn around, and I'd like look to make sure nobody was there. Or if I was meditating in public, I would do that. I would turn around, and boy, it's so crazy. It's just so crazy. And it just showed me that, like, because what meditation does is helps you to pinpoint where your issues are. Like, what are the things that are happening a lot inside of your mind that you think are you, that you think you have no control over, but they're really just the emotions you're used to grabbing a hold of. So fear is an emotion that I've been used to grabbing. I just always have gravitated towards it. I've always grabbed a hold of it. It's controlled a lot of my life. Now, I left my salaried job in radio almost 2 years ago and started this digital marketing podcasting company. And I think through meditation, it helped me. I was a year, I was almost 2 years into meditation at that point. And I really do believe that, unbeknownst to me at the time, but looking back on it now, fear played a major factor in me staying at that old job, and meditation helped me to alleviate that fear enough to, mixed with a bunch of other things, but alleviated me of that fear to give me the motivation and the power and the courage to leave that job and to branch out and do something on my own. And that was just beautiful to me. So that's where I kind of sat last night. Is I thought, wow, if I'm going to talk about meditation on a podcast and some practical uses of it, one of the practical uses is that it slows your brain down, number one. So it slows you down to the point where you can start to see these things and recognize these things. And also, it helps to send up warning signals, like that irrational fear of like somebody coming up and grabbing me from behind in my own room. wasn't irrational. It was irrational. It didn't make any sense. It was like, why am I having this irrational fear? And I probably never would have recognized it and been able to label it. And that's another great part of meditation, is it helps you to label these things. So it's not just that you are having this thing happen to you. I'm having fear, I'm scared, I'm afraid, and that can trickle into so many different parts of your life. If you just assume that's a part of who you are and you can't change it, then by all means, that is who you are. But if you can get to the point where you recognize, oh wait, that's just the program I've been running on for a long time. I just need to change the program, change the code a little bit. And that's what has happened to me over the past couple of years. Not even really trying to. Let me be clear on that. Like, I have not actively tried to eliminate fear from my life. It's just that through meditation, it has slowed me down enough and made me aware enough to recognize an emotion, label it as an emotion, and then let it go. Because it's not me. It's just an emotion. My body's going to throw tons of emotions. All of them. They're all going to bubble up all the time. I have an option to grab a hold of them. I have an option to, just let them go. And, number one, I could either grab a hold of them and run with them. I could resist them, which actually gets them stuck inside of me. Or I can just see them for what they are, label them, and then let them go. Now, if you're going to get into meditation, I suggest you have a guide of some sort. Don't just try to do it by yourself. I think you need some sort of guide, especially in the beginning. Super important. I suggest Headspace. I use Headspace for several years. Fantastic app. Pay for the whole year. Just pay for the year. Go through all the programs. Andy Puddicombe, who teaches it, is amazing. I would start there. You can start anywhere. There's many apps, and maybe you could find somebody or read a book or something like that. But the guided meditations really help just to get you on the right path. But I wanted to use this as an example of what fear is and isn't, and how meditation helped me to realize that without me even actively trying to realize that. I hope that point makes sense. I got to go in a second. But I hope that point makes sense, that it helped me to recognize that whether I decided to or not, it helped me to alleviate one of the major issues in my life. And I hope that's something powerful that I can leave you with. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I sincerely appreciate it, because this is important stuff, and I hope that it impacted somebody watching this. What are your experiences with meditation? How have you been impacted by it? Give me your story. I'd love to hear it, and I'll talk to you next time.